Hello, my name's Josh. I'm a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and I have recently been through a divorce. Thanks for coming back to my channel. Today, I would like to talk about a concept that I haven't experienced so much, maybe a little bit, but I've heard several people say through multiple different types of trials in their life, and that is this concept of I'm in this position, but I did everything I was supposed to do. And I hear that a lot. And actually, I'd heard that from people before my divorce. And so I kind of understood some of the pitfalls of it. But as I've gone through the divorce, I understand where people come from a little bit more on why they say that. But I'd like to talk about that statement and unpack it a little bit and kind of explain why I think it is not a very good or healthy thought process to go through. And let me explain. So, in my own life, in my own experience, right, I was raised in a good family. I was taught the gospel since I was a child. I received the priesthood when I was 12, the Melchizedek priesthood when I was 18. I went on a mission when I was 19. I served faithfully for 2 years. I came home. I went to college. I met a woman. We got married in the temple, and we had children. We did all the right things. Right? And that's I think what a lot of people are thinking. I did all the right things. So why am I in this position? And there's a lot of reasons for that, to be honest. And I think it's worth noting that people, probably since the time of Adam and Eve, have been trying to understand the nature of both good and evil, but why do bad things happen to good people? That's a question, if you read any philosophy, philosophers have been talking about forever and trying to get to the bottom of that. And, some have some okay answers and some have some pretty bad answers. But I think there's a flaw in this thought process. And that, from a gospel perspective, I should say. And that is that sometimes in a more immature state, we reduce the gospel down to a checklist, right? Well, I got baptized when I was 8, check. I got the priesthood, check. I went on a mission, check. I got married in the temple, check. So because of all those things, therefore, I now deserve to have this perfect life. And, we accept, I know there'll be challenges. We always know that too. We're always taught there's going to be trials and tests in life. But that's always good until that trial is ours to deal with, whatever that trial may be. So when we're going through divorce, which is a trial, I can tell you from my own experience, when I thought as a kid what my life would be, divorce was never a part of that story. And so I never, truthfully, I never thought I'd be here. But the gospel is a gospel of becoming. And although the milestones that we hit, being baptized and marrying in the temple or going on missions, and all those things are important, and all of those things are meant to help us. Really what they're meant to help us is become more like our heavenly parents. So our sometimes when we say the statement of, well, I did all the right things, what we're really saying is we're reducing the gospel down to that checklist that we know is not what the gospel is. And so we're kind of dismissing that idea of the gospel of us becoming. And we also know, when we read about many of the great people in the scriptures, many of them were good people who had very difficult challenges and had to overcome them. And they did everything right? So we know innately that just because we do the right things doesn't mean we are absolved of having the trials of life, and including, divorce. The other problem that I really see, though, and this one I think is a little bit more troublesome to me, is that when we say, well, I did everything right, what we're really not doing is taking a hard look at ourselves. Because the truth is, no one deserves to have betrayal part of their marriage. No one deserves to be mistreated. Of course, no one deserves any of that. And no one deserves the pain that they are feeling. But the reality is, none of us are perfect. And so we have to get to a point where we can look back at our marriage and we can say, you know, I was wrong here. I was wrong here. I did this wrong. Now, we don't have to beat ourselves up. I am not an advocate for just grinding ourselves into dust over that. But I do strongly encourage anyone, and I do it myself. I think back through the marriage and the mistakes that I made. And the reason I do that is so when the day comes when I get remarried again, I hopefully will not make those same mistakes. But I can tell you, there were lots of things in my marriage that I thought were the right thing at the time. But then you grow, and then you mature, and then you learn, and you realize, oh man, yeah, I was kind of an idiot. And it's okay because, most of us got married when we were in our early 20s. We're kind of kids still. We're adults, but we're still really young and immature. And so we're going to make mistakes in our marriage. And the truth is, when I get married again someday, I'm going to make mistakes again. I just know that now. And as I mature and learn and grow, I'll be able to correct those things. But if we walk out of a marriage and say, I did everything right and look at where I'm at, what we're also saying there is, besides the reducing the gospel down to a checklist, what we're saying is, I was perfect in my marriage. I did everything right, and it's all my spouse's fault. And the truth is, that's not true. And we all are human, and we all make mistakes, and we all have to be able to look back and critically at ourselves in a healthy way. I want to be clear on that. In a healthy way, we need to be critical of ourselves and go back and acknowledge the mistakes that we made. Acknowledge that probably somewhere along the way we hurt our spouse too. Now, did that deserve betrayal, divorce, and all that? No. The answer is no. But we can't absolve ourselves of the things we've done wrong and just pretend like we were perfect. That isn't unhealthy. It's not humble. It prevents us from, what it really does is prevent us from learning the lessons that we should have learned in our marriage. Now, there's a whole host of lessons that we learn from divorce, and it's important that we learn those lessons, but we need to also take lessons from the marriage into the next marriage. Because the reality is, if we are not willing to say that I wasn't perfect in my marriage, then we'll never grow. And again, the whole purpose of our life here is to become like our heavenly parents. The only way we become like them is through learning and growing and repenting and changing and everything that the gospel incorporates. So whenever I hear someone say, well, why did this happen to me? I did everything right. I acknowledge, I see where that comes from. And I understand that a lot of times that is a way of us expressing pain for the situation that we're in. We don't know what to think about it, especially early on in the divorce process. We just don't know what to think about it. Our whole world has been thrown upside down. And so sometime I guess that becomes like a kind of a useful crutch to get you through a little piece of the divorce. But we've got to get beyond that crutch and into the real meat of this life is meant to prepare me to meet God again. I need to become like God. And how is this experience going to help me do that? And that is not an easy thing to get to, and it is something that's an ongoing process. But we need to acknowledge that we have not done everything we could have done, right? We did all the boxes, but there's a whole lot of other stuff in between. In between that checklist of things, there's a whole lot of other stuff. And in there we make mistakes, and that's okay. And we're best served by acknowledging those things and learning from them. And accepting that is okay. So I will say, and this is just a personal thing, but I've talked to enough divorced people to know this. I've talked to a few divorced people, and I'll hear them say, well, the divorce was 100% my spouse's fault. It was all them. I did nothing wrong. And I've heard this quite literally. I've done nothing wrong. And I can tell you as a single person, that is a major red flag. That is a major red flag. Because even if you're the person who wanted to save the marriage, and doesn't matter what the circumstance was, but if you're really the person who tried to save this marriage and it didn't work out, you still realize you weren't perfect. And that's part of life. There's a bunch of imperfect people trying to live with each other and trying to work it out. And that's a tough go. So anyways, my name's Josh. I am a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And this church is not endorsed by the church. My thoughts are my own. I'm not a therapist or a counselor. I've just been through a divorce, and I've learned some lessons along the way. And I hope by sharing some of these thoughts, I'm able to help others too, to let them know that they're not alone and that there is hope. Thanks for coming to my channel.